Okay, this is the 6th week already, and because we didn't get to the second beast last time, we're going to do it this time. The second beast is actually just as interesting as the first. Let's go to Revelation 13, and we'll start with verse 11, and we'll just go around the room and read it first. Starting with you, I guess, Deanna.
Okay. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. And spoke as a dragon. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose fatal rule was healed.
He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast, who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. Revelation 13, right there.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should grow sweet and cause that his minions will not worship the image of the beast should be destroyed.
He also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead.
So that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast, or the number of his name.
This calls for wisdom. Let him who has understanding reckon the number of the beast. For it is human number. Its number is 666.
Okay, so let's go back to verse 11 again. He beholds another beast. This one comes out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, but he speaks as a dragon. He has two horns like a lamb, and he speaks as a dragon. Now, he has two horns like a lamb. He's not a lamb, he's like a lamb, okay? And the main thing there, he's got two horns. We'll talk about that later. And he speaks as a dragon, so that's really his main identity, that, you know, what comes out of his voice, what comes out of his mouth, that's really who he is.
Can we clarify lambs have horns?
Yeah, I was confused by that.
Little boy lamb.
Those are goats, aren't they?
Yeah, those little horns.
Nubs.
Yeah, those little nubs.
Those are goats.
They look like, you know, when a ram is young, he has little tiny.
Like a bighorn sheep, right?
Yeah, but they grow to have big horns, whereas the goats have nubs. The lambs never have nubs. No.
Well, when a ram is small as a baby, doesn't he have a small little nub? I saw a picture of one.
Some bigger translation.
Yeah, maybe there are other species of lambs or
Sheep?
sheep.
John was in a cave.
I want to get through everything, and then we'll talk about more of his description, okay? Let's go to quickly to Revelation 19 to 20. And the beast was taken, yea, and with him the false prophet, yea, that which wrought miracles. Now this is his identity here. The false prophet wrought miracles before him, before the other beast, with which he deceives them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. Okay? So that's a piece of his identity that it's not given in the other chapter, but it's a very important piece to know that he's a false prophet. Okay? Now let's go over to Daniel chapter 7. And we'll start with verse 7. And who wants to read 7? I think you were up, Charles.
Okay, Daniel 7, verse 7.
Yeah.
After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong,
It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
Okay. So now, this part here, that he was different than the other beasts, we talked about this. This beast is the Roman Empire. So how was the Roman Empire different than the other beasts?
More organized than the other beasts?
More organized?
Divided about stuff? Other than divided?
Well, this one has these great iron teeth, and he stamps the residue, and he's fearsome.
They had with the shield formation. They could do, when they would march, they would do the shield formation.
But I'd like to jump to 1 John 2:18. Whoever gets it first can read it.
Little children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour.
Okay. So John is writing this almost 2,000 years ago, and the specific thing I want to point out is that he's writing it in the time of the Roman Empire. So that's what makes this beast different. The fact that Antichrist has started to come. He started to infiltrate. Okay? Antichrist is there. Okay, now let's go back to Daniel chapter 7.
Is it possible, Bob, that he's talking maybe not to the little children in his midst, but he's speaking in a prophetic sense to maybe some future time? He's not saying little children right here. He's saying maybe.
Oh, yeah, that could be. But I think it's present, and I think that the Antichrist did start,
And could he be speaking about Satan? No.
Antichrist is definitely satanic.
Right.
But the fact that he says that even now is already in the world.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was already in the world
Okay.
at the time that he was writing that.
Not
But you're
necessarily
saying-
the physical being.
The Antichrist, like the essence of the Antichrist can be in the world, but
So you mean, like, are you talking about like the empire?
He defines who an Antichrist is. An Antichrist cannot acknowledge that Jesus, the Christ, came in the flesh.
Right.
He can't acknowledge that. That's who an Antichrist is.
Yeah, you can't say Jesus is Lord.
Yeah. And he's part of the building of this great entity that's, over the years, starting then, over the years they've been building this conglomerate that's starting to shape up now.
Okay.
And from what we did last week, it was the United Nations. Okay? Let's go now back to Daniel 7, Daniel 7, verse 8. Now we're going to hone in on who this beast is.
Daniel 7, verse 8.
Yeah.
While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully.
As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow, the hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze.
Well, actually, I didn't want you to go, but now go to 19. Go to 19.
Verse, okay. Then I wanted to know the true meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the other beasts, and most terrifying, with its iron teeth and bronze claws, the beast that crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left.
Okay, 20.
I also wanted to know about the 10 horns pointing to the mouth, the other horn that came out before, which the 3 of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others, and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully.
Okay, 21.
As I watched, the horn was waging war against the saints and defeating them.
And 22.
Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one. And the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom.
Okay. let's go back to verse 8 again. He's considering these 10 horns, and behold, there comes up among them another little horn, before whom were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were the eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. So, this part here where he uproots 3 horns, that is said in verse 8, that is said in verse 20, and that is said in verse 24. 3 times he mentions this. So this is an important thing about this guy that has to fit, whoever it is, it has to fit the fact that 3 horns are subdued by him. Okay? And the other thing, twice it's mentioned that he has eyes of a man. It's mentioned in verse 8 and verse 20. So that's an important thing too. Now, the 10 horns, remember the dragon's 7 heads, we said that they were chronological. They weren't, he didn't have the 7 heads all at once. They were chronological, like they came in history. First there was Egypt, then there was Assyria, then Babylon. You know.
That's what I've always wondered about that 7 heads.
Yeah.
It must have been an ugly sight to see 7 heads.
But it's not, cut and dry, because his 10 horns all come at once. Come right around our time. And his 10 toes represented...
But only symbolically, right?
What?
But only symbolically.
They represent 10 kings. Okay? We talked about it. I passed around that piece of paper, how the earth is now being divided into 10 trade regions.
Right.
North America is one of those trade regions. The European Union is one. And there's 10 of them altogether. I think that's it. I mean, I could be wrong.
What about that supposed union between Mexico, America, and Canada?
Right. That's the North American Union, NAFTA thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that a horn, is that what you're saying?
I think that's one of the dragon's 10 horns. The red dragon in chapter 12.
Is the dragon the NAFTA, or the horn? No, the horn. Okay.
The horn is one of those 10 horns.
One of the kings.
Our North American NAFTA trade region is one of those 10 horns.
And in Daniel 7:24, it says the 10 horns are 10 kings.
Yeah, that's right. Now this is a different 10 horns. It's very confusing. These 10 horns are not the same 10 horns of the dragon in Revelation 12. These 10 horns are part of the Roman Empire. And I believe these 10 horns come up in a chronological order also. They're not all there at once. Okay? And I think that they're Caesars, that they're kings, they're the emperors. All right?
Presidents?
Emperors of the Roman Empire. Now, the thing is about that, though, is there were a lot more than 10 Caesars. So that's like part of the mystery.
How do we know it's the Roman Empire?
How do we know it's the Roman Empire? Because it was, he was talking about the different empires. Remember that the different, we had the lion, and then we had the bear, and then, those were the empires. So right after the Grecian Empire came the Roman Empire. So that's kind of like how you know it's the Roman Empire. All right? Now, there are many Christians, scholars, and prophetic news magazines and stuff that list, and they look for a beast coming. They look for 10 horns coming out of Europe. All right, and they look.
You think of a horn as like a crown, and how we associate kind of.
It's
represents the kingdom.
Represents a king. Yeah. Now they typically look for that. Now they're getting the 2 beasts of 13 mixed up, because one's an Antichrist and one is a false prophet of the Antichrist. They're both very similar, but they're two different ones, right? And anyway, so
See, I've read some places that like of the seed meant within like of Jewish descent and of the earth meant Gentile descent. Like that some people were looking for the AntiChrist to be Jewish and the false prophet to be Gentile. Have you read that at all? Or
no, remember I thought what the seas were? That fact that the United Nations is set in a separate, it's between the seas. It's set in North America, which is an empire between the seas.
But hadn't we said that every empire is between the seas? I mean,
You mentioned that, but like, what? I mean, what one? Is Russia between the seas?
yes.
Or it has a sea border, but it's not pronounced like North America. North America is a pronounced.
But all of North American countries are Mexico, Canada, Australia.
Yeah, but the United Nations is set in New York.
Right, but New York itself isn't between the seas, it's the whole country. Right, it's a river, it's a river and a sea.
You know, that's just the point. All the rest of the characteristics fit, you know, in the United Nations. So that's only one little thing. And, you know, if you don't like it, you know, you want to think of something else that fits. That's what I see. I mean, I don't know. But now we're going over to these 10 horns, which are, I think they already happened, these 10 horns, and I think that this guy already happened, and he's in history, and he's explained in history.
Do you think, I know that you talked about the Antichrist as being kind of a corporate Antichrist and also Antichrist the person.
Right.
Obviously, the corporate Antichrist can exist for 2,000 years plus, but the Antichrist person, do you think that's still yet to come?
Yes. I mean, if you want to know who I think the Antichrist the person is, I think Antichrist the person is Gorbachev. But the fact that he's 77 years old already means maybe he's not. But he has so many things about this guy that make me think he's the Antichrist. You know, he's got the mark on his head. He's got. He's the one who said to put the Earth Charter into the Ark, and he's the one who has, you know, he's green cross. Well, he's the head of green cross, you know, which is like the cross. It's, you know, he compares himself to God. I mean, to Jesus, very much, in some of those subtle ways.
People are in second phone, you know.
I know, but like I said, he might not be. First of all, he's 77 years old, and I don't see this thing happening for at least for another 5 years, 3 or 4, at least three or 4 years. But he still could do it. I mean, 80 years old. What?
Wasn't he instrumental in the eventual the opening up of Russia and eventual collapse of the nation as a political force?
Yeah. And also his name, it means Gorbachev. Gorba means hunched. So it's like hunched, like crooked. So it's like a serpent. It's crooked.
Wow.
So anyway, we had these 10 Caesars. Okay. Now, the fact that there's more than 10 like confuses us a little bit, but Fox's Book of Martyrs points out 10 Caesars that persecuted the church. All right? And it does this, you notice here, it just says that there are 10. It doesn't say that only 10. It says there were 10. He had visions in his head, you know, that terrified him. So I think these specific 10 bothered him. You know, that it had these 10 that persecuted the church. Okay? Now, right after these the last 10. I have the list of who those 10 are. I pass it around. There's another theory by this other guy who thinks that from Caesar Augustus to Caesar Titus, there were 10 Caesars, and at the time of Caesar Titus, the temple was destroyed. So that's his thought. I actually thought that myself once, but when I saw the fact that Fox's Books of Martyrs points out 10 that persecuted the church, I kind of like stayed with this one. And then anyway, this guy, this little horn, is different than the others. That's one thing he has to be. He has to be different than the others. So these 10 persecuted, and this next one is different than the others. Now, I'm going to say right now who I think it is. I think it was Constantine. Okay? The last Caesar on that list was right before Constantine. And at the time of that last one, they had what they call a tetrarchy, which means that the empire was divided up into 2 Augusti Caesars and 2 Caesars, assistant. So the East and the West were like ruled by 4, all right? But there was 2 Augusti and 2 Caesars. And to make a long story short, in 308, I think it was, 4 full Augusti Caesars, all at odds with each other, did not bode well for the Tetrarch system. All right, so
And Constantine overthrew the other 3. Is that...
Constantine eventually became the sole ruler, right? And that was really the only time. I mean, you did have that Tetrarch system, but 2 were Augusti and 2 were Caesars. This time, you had 4 Augusti competing for, not competing, but, you know, declared Augusti Caesars. That was the only time it happened, and it didn't happen after that. So, I mean, that fits the bill as far as the one horn subduing the other 3. Okay? Do you see that? Okay. Also, this horn is different than the others. Now, was Constantine, let me ask you a general question. Do you think Constantine was good for the church or bad for the church?
Well, it's good for the church.
Was that all? We have 2 goods. Okay. Why was he good?
Persecution of Christians.
Okay.
He made Christianity the national religion.
Okay.
He funneled a lot of money, this may be good or bad, towards the church, and allowed the bishops and all to really raise up in political stature, which may be good or bad.
Okay.
He institutionalized the church in a political framework.
Okay. Do I have any that say no? You don't like him?
You cannot like him as a historic person, but you could still, I mean, I think that overall he was good for Christianity, but there were aspects of him that were not good.
Okay.
I mean, he wasn't a really nice
I mean,
person.
he helped the objective of spreading Christianity. I mean, I think the result of what with the institutionalizing did sort of led to the Catholic Church and might not have been muddied as the water. Right, exactly. Might not have been as pure, but I think that would have happened over time anyway.
Okay. What I don't like is he made Christianity the head of the official. Well, he helped it being the official religion of the state, and he also just like made it another god. Made Jesus just another god amongst the other gods. He didn't do away with the others. They all had to be amongst them. Okay. He was the Roman emperor, which meant that he carried the torch of being the Pontiff Maximus, which means the high priest. Okay? He was the high priest of the college of these priests, that went back into the 700 BC time frame. The Roman gods. He was the head high priest of the college that was part of the Roman gods. All right, and he never really relinquished that. He was, he kept that. He passed the torch on to the next Caesar and next Caesar and next Caesar. And what happened to that torch? Does anybody know, by the way? Who took the torch after the Roman emperors didn't, use it anymore? Who took it next? The Pope. So today, the Pope is Pontiff Maximus of the gods of Rome. And they don't say, I don't want this. They still keep the title. In other words, you really can't mix other gods with Jesus. You're either going to have Jesus and you're going to obey the first commandment, which is to have no other gods before him, or you're going to believe in those other gods and you're not going to have the true God.
I think that there's a conflict there, but I think that in order to spread Christianity as a new religion, it has to come into a region where there are other gods or other practices. And for a time period, there's going to be some mixing. I mean, if you look at the British Isles, as the Romans brought Christianity to the Celtic British Isles, there was a tremendous mix, and a lot of the traditions that we have now actually came from a mixture of pagan ritual being incorporated into the church so that they could get the people to eventually give up the old gods and take up the new.
Yeah.
But that happens everywhere. And in Spain that happened. It happened in South America.
Yeah, but they gave up for what he's saying. I'm sorry.
Well, we didn't give up Christmas, and frankly, Christmas is now the celebration of Christ's birth. But it actually used to be a Yuletide celebration, which was a pagan ritual.
Yeah.
So we basically took an old pagan ritual and put a Christian stamp on it. But there's still there's an underside to that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's what's the word? It's a gray area, but I think that one of the church used to gather in their homes. All right, they used to have their Saturday Sabbath, and they used to have the Passover and celebrate the communion. When Jesus said, "Do this, and as often as you do it in remembrance of me." When he said that, it was a Passover dinner, and every year at Passover they broke the bread and drank the wine as a Passover supper. Gentiles too, and they remembered his death. And one of the things Constantine did was break the tradition, that Passover tradition, and made Easter out of it, which was, again, the pagan way of doing things. And he separated the time it was to happen. There was a specific time that Passover was to happen, and he changed that time and made it the first Sunday after the full moon, which was right after the spring equinox. So I think we lost a lot there, and we're going to read later on in Daniel here where he changes laws. This guy changes laws. So right there, there's two big laws. He changed the Sabbath to Sunday, and he changed Passover to an Easter, a different time. Okay? So and he forced churches out of the houses and into these public church buildings. He did that too. So he fits this again because he changes laws. The other one there where he has two eyes like a man. If you know about Constantine, Constantine had a vision, or does anybody know? Do you know? Tell me what you know.
So when Rome was in a civil war, Constantine came from Gaul. That's where his father was one of the tetrarchs. And he, after his father kind of gave him the power, he came down to have this great battle on in the Roman who was going to oppose him. And he was very nervous because he had fewer men. He was younger. And the night before the big battle, he put to sleep supposedly and went out and walked about by himself and saw a vision in the sky. There was a cross in the sky, and he heard the words "In hoc signo vinces," in the sign you will conquer.
Well, his mom, they sanctified his mom, this Saint Helena, and he's a saint too. But yeah, that's the vision that he sees a sign, and in this sign you shall conquer. Now, and it's the sign of an X, which is the Greek letter for chi, and the sign of the Greek letter rho, chi and a rho, and you overlay them together, and you get that what they call labyrinth or something symbol out of it. And supposedly, the first letter of Christ is chi, and the second letter is rho, right? But when was the last time you abbreviated somebody's name using the first two letters? I mean, I never did. I never heard of it. I mean, if you were going to abbreviate Jesus Christ, you would use the J and the C in English, right? You wouldn't say CH, right? So what I'm getting at is I think that the fact that he had the eyes of a man, that this was really not a true prophecy of God. He had the eyes of a man, but he didn't have the eyes of a prophet, a true prophet of God, which links this, again, to the false prophet beast. Okay? It links it to the false prophet beast if this guy is a false prophet. Now, the other part about this is, in this sign you shall conquer. Now, what did Jesus say about the cross? What did he say about the cross to us as a symbol, using it as a symbol? Come on, this is...
If you want to be my disciples, take up your cross.
Yeah, if you want to be my disciples, pick up your cross and carry it, right? Which is an entirely different thing than putting the cross on your shield and going into battle. Because he's putting his cross on his back, carrying it to a place where he's going to get crucified. That's because he's in a different kingdom. He's in a different world. He is not of this world, right? But if you are of this world, then you fight and you conquer, and you don't really believe as a motto that the meek will inherit the earth, right? So I do not think that it was God that was giving him this sign, the sign of a cross, to enable this dreadful beast to conquer. He's describing it as a dreadful, terrible beast, different than the other beasts. That's how dreadful it is. And this guy is coming and saying that God has given me the sign of the cross to go and conquer.
What if Constantine hadn't conquered? Think about what the state, who knows, but Christianity would have been very, very different. And I think the spread of Christianity would have taken a much longer time period.
I don't think so.
Why not?
Why not? Because it spreads because of God. God enables it to spread.
But don't you think that he might have enabled the wind so that he could spread Christianity?
All things do work together for the good that love God, and so. But I think that Constantine was part of the world, not a part of God's. I mean, everything is a part of God's plan in a sense.
Right, because God uses things.
But I don't think that God would tell a person to conquer using the cross in that way when he just got finished saying to pick up your cross, daily, in the sense that you are going to give up your life.
But there are plenty of times in the Old Testament where he told people,
How to win
nations,
battles.
yeah, how to win battles, or to wipe whole,
Yeah,
People out.
yeah, but, you know,
Especially, that was.
well,
that
when
was
even in the
for
Old
their
Testament,
kingdom.
the Old Testament is first of all different. You know, it's a different thing going on now. But in the Old Testament, when did he ever give anybody a sign to use to put on his shield? And
Well, not the exact thing, but he did tell people, and I can't recall the exact verses, but he did tell people how to win battles.
Or to
Even
go into
Deborah,
battle.
right?
Deborah, that's it, yeah. Or
Yeah, where to
David.
go.
And
yeah, he told the
people Joshua.
he told Joshua to go around and blow the trumpets. But
Moses carried the staff, this will be a sign.
yeah,
About a foundational question for me is, earlier we said the Antichrist is defined as one who denies the life of Jesus and the death of Jesus as a person on earth.
uh-huh.
Is that a
Yeah,
accepted
he denies that he's in the flesh.
or had been in the flesh?
In other words, they accept him as being a spirit, but not that he came in the flesh.
So when Jesus was around, even the demons knew that Jesus was God, right?
Yeah,
So they weren't the Antichrist because they acknowledged his existence as
yeah.
God in the flesh.
It's
And what I'm getting at here is, and one of the points of your whole given this series is so that we will be able to recognize the end times as they approach. And so if somebody preaches and says, I acknowledge that Jesus Christ was born of the Virgin Mary, died, was crucified, and rose again. If somebody says that, can we, based on your understanding of Scripture, deduce that they are not the Antichrist? If somebody says
they don't have the Antichrist spirit if they acknowledge that. Yes.
Now, saying and believing, is that, we're saying that they wouldn't even be able to say
I
it
don't
with
think
their
they.
own-
I don't even think they could say it.
No, it says in the Bible they can't utter the word that Jesus is God.
so. That's a very important
Can't even do
litmus test, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, none of us know Constantine personally, but if we heard a video recording of him saying that I acknowledge that Jesus Christ, blah, 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 did he give the Apostles' Creed?
Well, don't forget, we don't have to judge Constantine. God's going to judge Constantine. We don't really have to do that. I'm just trying to see what fits this prophecy, and he fits the prophecy clearest to me. And I think that the fact that it says the eyes of a man, and I think that's saying that this is not a prophet, and that means that he did prophesy. Constantine did prophesy, which links him to the false prophet. Okay.
Or a true prophet. If it,
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm, like, I think, like,
Yeah, but you emphasize the man, not, you don't call a prophet he has the eyes of a man. Would you think that
well,
the
no,
guy...
that's what I'm saying, so yes. So if this was a true prophecy, which some of us are thinking, or maybe leaning towards believing it was, then it wouldn't fit that. Then it
I love
wouldn't be a
what you
prophecy.
said about Gorbachev, though. So you think old Gorby is the Antichrist, huh?
Does anybody know what, because I've seen Gorbachev speak, and I'm trying to remember if he does anything.
He has a big...
Does he acknowledge Christ?
He says that his God is the God of nature.
Well, that's a new God I never heard of.
Remember that the Soviet
That's
Union
like
also
first one,
recently
yeah,
outlawed
that's
religion.
what, yeah.
The God of nature.
Like Gaia,
What does he look like?
Mother Earth.
Oh, Mother Earth, okay. Oh, okay.
My question is, how is the beast in? This could be really obvious, and you all get these guys don't. But are you trying to relate the beast in that comes out of the sea to the horns in Daniel?
No, the one that comes out of the earth, the one we just read about tonight. The one that comes out of the earth.
Sorry, the one with
The two horns.
of the land.
Two horns.
So are you trying to relate those, or how?
Yeah, I'm trying to make it. Now, back to the two horns, you just reminded me. Constantine set up in Byzantine, Constantinople, he set up another sort of like Catholic Roman church. So that would make the two, he gave them a senate, and made them just like Rome. He called it New Rome. So he had, that's what I see as the two horns. See?
Roman
Roman, the East,
Okay,
Eastern.
so I'm missing something. So we're saying, I saw how we were saying that this fourth beast that Daniel was seeing, in your opinion, fits with Constantine. And so we're now saying that and I think this is what you're saying. This is also saying that the beast of the earth, the false prophet, is Constantine, is not somebody yet to come. You're saying the false prophet has already come.
Corby.
No, you're saying the false prophet.
The false prophet, the roots of the false prophet beast. Don't forget he's a beast, which means, again, he's a conglomerate. Okay? The roots of it is right here, what we're describing in Constantine's time.
So you're saying that there will not be another false prophet to come?
No, there is going to be, in the last days, in the last final 7 years, there's going to be another spokesman that speaks for the entity.
That builds the idol.
That makes miracles in the sight of men, deceives men, and causes them to worship the beast and receive the mark. And he rules in the second half, and when we see that in verse 25, Daniel 7:25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High. So he's just like the other beast. The other beast speaks great words against the Most High. He's just like him, okay? And shall wear out the saints of the Most High, again, just like the other beast, and think to change times and laws. Remember, we just talked about how he's changed Sabbath to Sunday and Passover to Easter. And the other beast in Revelation 13 causes men to receive the mark, or they can't buy or sell. So now that is changing the law. See? That's changing a big law. You can't buy or sell unless you have this mark. That's a big change of the law, again. And they shall be given into his hand until a times, and dividing of time. So remember, when I was given the timeline, I thought that the first half was the 42 months plus the extra month, and the second half is this times, and dividing of times, in which this beast takes over. Because the other beast only rules for 42 months, but this guy rules for times, and dividing of times. So it's almost as if the Antichrist is a football player running down to the goal line, and he's about to get tackled, and he laterals to the other guy. He laterals to another guy, and he takes over.
Jamal Lewis.
Okay, that's what it's like. The power is the great authority is passed over to him. And I, when Antichrist in the very middle, he exalts himself as God. That causes that whole tribulation. I think that's where he gets
people to rule it. And that's, I think, similar to something in Nebuchadnezzar did a similar thing. Is that right?
Yeah.
But I was reading something, because there's this book I've been reading called Are We Living in the End Times? It's by Tim LaHaye and Jared Jenkins. And one of the things that they were saying was, people have said for years, well, how, only God can breathe life, because it says that this statue will talk and be able to communicate, and how if only God can breathe life, how will the Antichrist do this? And how years ago, people debated about this forever, but now as you're seeing more and more that can be done with electronics, that it's completely not impossible to think that in a third world country where they'd be bringing this thing that people haven't seen anything, and you've got a highly electronic statue that can talk and respond via the voice of the actual Antichrist, how that could easily convince people to worship it.
Yeah.
That part of the limitation for that prophecy to be fulfilled was for the electronic age to catch up, because the fact that they can't breathe life.
There's also the clone factor. The fact that they clone animals, and who knows what's going beyond. They're definitely trying to clone humans. And if they took a piece of Gorby's skin and cloned them, that would fit, right? I don't know. I wouldn't put anything past them. Okay, where were we? Anybody have a question on chapter 7? The main things is there are 10 Caesars that persecute the church, and then right after them comes Constantine, who is part of this four Augusti Caesar group, and he becomes the emperor of Rome all by himself. So he subdues 3, and he has the eyes of a man. He has this vision, and it seems to be a false prophecy according to what we know about what the cross really means. And he does change laws, very significantly changes laws, the Passover and Saturday to Sunday rest. And he keeps this Pontiff Maximus title, which is the high priest, Okay, we don't even have a high priest in the Bible anymore as per the New Testament. The high priest is an Old Testament thing.
Right.
Jesus became the high priest. There's no more high priest. Nobody's a high priest anymore. There's apostles who are extremely gifted of God with extreme powerful gifts. But these guys are low-to-the-earth men, humble, meek men, if you met them in real person. They would never have anybody worship them. Their mind is on they're not of this world.
And how would they go about not letting anybody worship?
How would they do that? They just
Because
tell
they
them.
were famous.
They tell them. We have examples of that in the Bible where the people wanted to worship them, and they say, "Don't do that. We're just men, just like
They
you."
told them not to bow down to them, or not to. What else? Just not to bow down to them, right?
Yeah, they told them. They corrected the person, said, "Listen, you're supposed to worship God, not me."
Right. Like Oprah, sometimes she'll bow to somebody. She does.
What?
Just reading this verse again, how he will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and laws. Just the audacity of this person, how boastful he is.
Yeah, how boastful, exactly. Actually, that's,
Where's that at, Holly?
That was verse 25.
that's another one that I forgot to point out. In verse 20, it says, "Whose look was more stout than his fellows." Whose look was more stout than his fellows in King James. That word stout has to do with being great. This guy is great. Now, the other 10 persecuting Caesars were great, but this guy is greater in the sense that he starts to change laws of God. Okay? He not only is the emperor of Rome, he's the emperor of the church. He dictates what the church is doing now. He's also, like I said, he's also this high priest that is part of a college that is the college of priests for all the Romes of God, all the gods of Rome, I'm sorry. So, the gods of Rome were not the true God. We're told not to worship them. You can't play both. You can't. I said that before, and I don't see how you can get around it. You become a Christian, you gotta give that up, and you gotta worship the true God. I don't know how you're gonna get around it being a Christian. You can't have other gods before you.
But you can be part of a society in which, I think one of the keys to Christianity is the choice, and we all had a choice of what to believe. And I think for example, being a Christian president doesn't mean you have to make the law eliminate every other person from having an option of believing in another God. So I don't.
Right.
Looking at Constantine for being in a situation where
let me ask you to put it to you this way. If somebody offered you the position of being the high priest of the priests of Rome, where all the priests of Rome, all those priests deal with the gods of Rome, would you take it?
I wouldn't, but I don't. what I'm saying is I don't fall.
If you were, before you were a Christian.
Compare Nero to Constantine. I mean, you cannot say that Constantine was worse than Nero. Nero might not have done the best thing, right? He might not have done the ideal thing. I'm sorry, Constantine might not have done the ideal thing, but
Nero
but Nero, like, what? I mean, look at Constantine. Look at what King Henry VIII in England. He changed the law. He said, you know what? I want divorce. I want divorce within my religion. And it's sort of like, that's not the biggest crime against.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because the verse says he's different than the others. He's different than the 10.
Sure.
So the point is that Constantine was different than the 10. Right? And I was the only one in the group that thinks that this was not a good thing for the church. His making the Christianity he's making Jesus one of the gods of Rome. I don't think that's good.
I don't necessarily buy off that he did that.
No.
Here's my thought there. Just like I said, for instance, Christmas, originally was a Yuletime, Celtic religion, or, celebration, and then eventually we celebrate it, we take it over the holiday and made the celebration of Christ's birth. There's a transitional time period there.
Yeah.
And I think that he was politically in charge, and frankly, even talking about you said eventually it went on to the popes, this scepter or whatever, and that, I'm pretty sure that the popes this day and age, even if they still have the scepter, does not believe or endorse the gods of Rome. I think though that he recognizes that as a piece of history and probably a national treasure, and has continued to maintain it in the Vatican, and maybe it has some special significant history or symbolic.
If you take
it's to endorse the gods of Rome.
If you take the priests out of the picture that are part of this Roman god group, if you take those people out of the picture, there isn't a title anymore.
At which time? I mean, which time?
Now, at this point in time.
Okay, say that again.
If you have these, the College of Pontiffs, College of Priests, who were they serviced the Roman gods. They were priests that serviced the Roman gods, multi-gods. Okay? If you don't have those priests doing what they do, then you can't have a high priest, because there's a high priest over nobody.
Well, I don't think you have those priests in Rome anymore.
Well, I don't know about that.
I really don't. I can tell you, though, I know a lot of priests. I grew up with a lot of priests. I grew up with a lot of bishops and very high-ranking priests, and they are oftentimes men of God.
Okay.
And I cannot tell you that not a one would say that they believe or service the gods of Rome, without a doubt.
Well, that would be great.
No, I mean, it's not
If they don't service the gods of Rome, that would be great. That would be great. But you can't even be a high priest, because there's no high priest in Christianity anymore.
Well, I mean, there's rank in the Catholic Church.
I know there is.
So that's a rank in service of Jesus Christ.
I really didn't want to get into that. I just wanted to point out that, let's go to verse 9. There's one more thing here. He beheld this vision until the thrones were cast down and the Ancient of Days sit. That's all I want to read there. Which means that this is going on right up until the end. Okay? This vision that he sees goes right up until the end. And that's the reason why I think it's still going on, and I think that the Antichrist's right-hand man is this guy who has an entity all of his own, and who will be in the picture on the second half of the 7 years, the time dividing of times.
When's the 7 years?
When?
Yeah.
Well, I wish I knew that.
Oh, that's like 6.
I wish I could tell you when exactly, but we are talking about is what signs you could see that will tell you that it's about to start. That's what.
Final end time.
Okay.
Combination of Revelation 4.
Jesus comes back. And the rapture and all that.
All right. So let's go back and finish reading this. Back in 13 now. Revelation 13, yeah. We'll start with 11 again. He beheld another beast coming out of the earth. This one comes out of the earth now. I identified it as coming out of Rome, so it would come out of the earth. And he has two horns like a lamb. He has this God facade, I would say. God facade? Do you pronounce it facade or facade? He has a lamb facade. But he speaks like a dragon, which means he's political. Verse 12, he exercises all the power of the first beast before him. Remember how much power he had? Remember all the glory and all that power that AntiChrist was given by the dragon? Now he's got it. The football was lateraled over to him, and he's carrying it.
So you don't think that they're coexisting in time? You're saying, yes, it's the first 42 months and the second 42 months, but you don't think the one is the mouthpiece of the Antichrist for that first 42 months as well?
No, I think they're two different mouthpieces. I do think there were two different mouthpieces. The first mouthpiece, I think, died as soon as he tried to exalt himself as God. And that's why he doesn't have any more power anymore. That's why the whole thing shrunk, into a feeble state, and this new entity is now taken over. See, and he has that entity has a mouthpiece as well.
I think that the thing that I struggle with the most with prophecy. I mean, I certainly know that there are over 2,000 prophecies of the second coming of Christ, so I know it's an important thing to study. But the thing that I worry about with me is pigeonholing myself an idea and then for kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, that expression is there because as you start to see things, we can say, well, there were 10. I don't think that's important because it doesn't fit my theory. But this part does, so I get excited. And then I start to lose track of what the Bible is saying and what I've taken on.
That's right. You're supposed to always take your thoughts and test them because everything has to fit. In other words, he has to. For example, if I just passed around those 10 Caesars that were, there was a year in 1969, not 1969, when you had four Caesars in 1 year. You had 3 Caesars that died very quick, okay, and then one comes up. But the only thing is that was the 9th one. That wasn't the 11th horn. If there was the 11th one, it would have been a perfect fit. See? But so everything that you read, you got to test with other scriptures. Everything's got to fit. See?
At least it says in Revelation, it says, blessed is the one blessed are you, who reads the words of prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take it to heart, what is written in it.
That's right.
So it's good that at least you're trying to take it to heart, and you'll be blessed because you are.
Okay. Let's go to verse 12. I think I read that. He exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Notice how it's a comparison with Jesus and the Holy Spirit and Antichrist and the false prophet. The Holy Spirit causes us to worship Jesus. This guy is causing the world to worship the beast. See? The same exact role.
Now, I've heard that the fatal wound is actually the Antichrist rising from the dead. When they say the fatal wound has been healed, I've heard...
Yeah, but again, you got to fit it with all the rest of the verses. He has 7 heads. Did you ever see a person that has 7 heads? That's why it can't be a person that raises from the dead, because a person one man can't raise from the dead. I mean, can't have 7 heads.
He's a two-faced.
Right, but so you literally are taking that prophecy that and it's 7.
Heads, like it says.
I thought it was like kingdoms.
But see,
We're
that's
talking
what,
about
that,
peace
so
here.
this is what I have difficulty, is when we pick and choose what's
Right,
symbolic
right.
to fit our theory.
What are you talking about?
So maybe I'm misinterpreting that.
Well, we're saying. Could mean something else in addition to physical head.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Just like 10 horns means
Like
something
eyes.
different than a physical horn.
All right, so in other words, a person that was the Antichrist died, and he came to life again, and his 7 heads and his 10 horns mean something weird.
No, but we've been saying, well, maybe
Yeah, I
I'm
thought
completely
so
off, but
too.
I thought we were saying 10 horns or 10 kingdoms, not actually horns that are going to be on the,
Right,
right?
right.
So then we can't use the limitation of a 7-headed person coming back to life if we're not even saying, if we're saying some of it's symbolism and now.
We're saying these beasts are people. We're saying that this beast coming out of the earth with 2 horns like a lamb but spoke like a dragon is a person.
Is it also,
2 horns.
also an entity? Remember the 2 horns I'm pointing out is one in Byzantine and one in Rome. Those are the 2 horns. And the 7 heads are the 7 permanent members of the Security Council. Okay? And the 10 horns are the non-permanent members, 10 non-permanent members.
You're not actually saying that there is a false prophet person.
The false prophet person it's given a mouth. It's given a mouth. The United Nations has a Security Council. Secretary General, who's a man, a spokesman for the whole thing. See?
So how can you say, so you're saying the 2 horns of the lamb are Byzantine and Rome? That's like, Byzantine and Rome are no longer politically worth.
Yeah, but they're
Wow.
still involved in the religious sense.
But so you're taking religious sense of one and then like applying the UN to the other?
Yeah,
I'm saying
these are
part
2
of it seems like we're piecing it right before
this is
saying
another beast now. This is the second beast. But the other beast has 10 horns that are not the same 2 horns of this other beast,
Okay.
right?
I guess I'm having trouble seeing how how the beast from the earth is related to Daniel's 4th dragon. What is he? Dragon? Beast. They're both beasts. Okay. I don't see how they're connected.
You don't see how this beast is connected to the...
The beast in Daniel.
Daniel had a beast that represented Rome, which had 10 horns.
Right, and with the Caesars, I got that.
Okay. And Constantine comes up and he overrules 3, and he changes laws,
Right.
and he fits the bill.
But you're saying the 2 horns, these 2 horns in Revelation 13:11 are Byzantine and Rome. Did I misunderstand?
So I further heard
Yeah,
that
the 2 horns
That's
as
why I
a
think they're connected.
right,
But
right.
there's 2 different, you're
Right.
saying one's from Revelations and one's from Daniel.
Those 2, I think that those 2 horns in Revelation 13:11 are Rome and Byzantine. Yeah, that's
I
what
see,
I
I've
think.
heard the 10 horns of the 10 nations of European Union.
Right.
Many times.
Right, but everything has to fit. Everything has to fit. Because number one, European Union doesn't have 10 nations. It has,
It's growing now.
it's growing like crazy.
Especially the old Roman, basically the Roman Empire.
Yeah, and it never had any kind of action where one nation overruled 3.
No, but they're all together, they're all linked.
Yeah, but you have to have that happen. It's written 3 times, so you got to see that.
So, but I'm saying maybe it hasn't happened yet.
And maybe it hasn't.
And maybe
Maybe it hasn't happened.
We're
That's true.
forcing a theory because it works with. I agree. I think that's interesting. It works with Constantine, but it doesn't. Prophecy to me isn't that the first time we can make something work means it's fact. Correct? I mean, the first time we can fit somebody into the puzzle does not necessarily mean that that's the right answer.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
And there's a lot of reasons to suspect that these may not present themselves most clearly until the end times.
That's right.
The 70 weeks. So yeah, these may not have really.
Well, Bob, do you think that in general, the prophecy, the end times prophecy is directed more towards creation itself, or more towards unbelievers itself, or for the most part towards believers itself?
The prophecies are more for you as a believer.
For believers.
First of all, an unbeliever doesn't read it, doesn't
Right.
know it, doesn't hear it, doesn't want to know it.
Right, so it's mostly for us to recognize it, understand it, have wisdom in it,
That's right.
to be prepared,
That's right.
to know how to react, to be in the game with God.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, that like saying that this necessarily hasn't happened. Like if we like open a newspaper tomorrow and see that I don't know someone in Russia's taken over like 3 kingdoms, like that we could think, oh, it's still possible. That,
Yeah, but somebody in Russia, but it's got to come out of this 10-horned beast too. You know, it's the
Well,
whole
it could
thing
be
has
like
to.
somewhere. I'm sure someone could be like, oh, there were 10. There's been 10. You know, Yugoslavian dictator. I don't know. I'm sure there's got to be like.
Yeah, if you could
10
point
anywhere.
out things that fit, yeah.
Okay.
And that's so enlightening, because if we knew in our personal lives what we're going to have to deal with today, or the big things, there's somebody said we're either coming out of a crisis, we're going into a crisis, or we're or about to go in one. Right? Yeah. So if we know what that crisis is going to be, we know what our prayers are going to sound like. We're going to prepare for it.
That's right.
And that's what God's doing with his prophecies. He's telling us how we're going to prepare, what to look for.
That's right. If he tells you ahead of time, it's much easier.
Yeah, because on the cover of this great book, it seems like your shirt, intimidating. It seems like it's horrifying as Christians, because we know it's going to happen. And to realize that when we know it's coming, how to prepare for it, and to thank God for it, that we're that much closer to Him, makes it easier.
And I think a key to this whole study, I think you've been good about giving this caveat, is that this is your theory. I don't think we're supposed to come up. I don't know if your goal is for us to come away thinking Gorbachev is the Antichrist. More how to look at prophecy and
Right.
the importance of making everything fit, and that you can't pick and choose. And I think that maybe the voice of frustration is unfair in thinking that we're supposed to come away with certain answers, because I don't think that.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
If you don't have a hunger for this, I couldn't spoon feed it to you anyway. You have to have a hunger. This is the book of Revelation. In other words, it means that there's a cover over it, and you got to take the cover off, and that takes a lot of prayer, to understand what it's saying. And if you don't put the work into it, you're not going to get the results. Okay? You got to pray about this. When you see something that you don't understand, you got to pray to God and say, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? Okay?
In closing, I know you wanted to work through the rest of 13. There are a few discrete, tangible things. The mark, the 666, and Dave was saying that we should be prepared and look for these things. Maybe if you could just, in closing, offer your thoughts on how literally should we interpret the mark of 666.
Okay, let's just read it. Okay, there's only 4 verses, something like that. Verse 15. He had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. 66. Okay? So, that's what we're up to. We're coming to a point where everybody has to do what this guy says, or else you can't buy or sell. Now you know how you take your credit card and you go to the store and you buy something. You work for it, you have the money, and you buy it. Well, you can still do that, but you have to take this mark. All right? And I'm pretty sure that there's going to be something to it before you take the mark. You somehow, some way or form, you're going to have to renounce your faith in Jesus Christ. Because the whole thing about the dragon and the AntiChrist and the false prophet is that
Or what?
they hate
Renounce it
They
or...
hate worship of the true God. And they want it. So they're going to try to take that away from you as much as they can. And the only thing left is to just say no. And whatever they do with you, if they take you to a concentration camp or whatever, you go. That's what you prepare yourself now for. You have to prepare yourself in your mind. What am I going to do if that day happens? And my advice is, don't take the mark, because you see what happens to the people that do. Right?
Well, we won't take them on.
And
Because we're Christians.
yeah.
We won't take it. God,
Well,
I mean, we just won't take it.
well, you could renounce your faith.
Well, there's people that are thinking, I don't want to, I mean, that'd be a good way to, I don't know, tell like he was for real, because I'm sure there's probably be a lot of people in the church who are like, I have family to feed, and if I'm not going to be able, I don't think it's easy. I mean,
Yeah.
when we have like food here and we're like sipping tea and like eating chocolate cake, you just say like, one day when it comes, I'm just going to be tough and go to concentration and starve to death. But if you have like children, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just saying like, it would be a lot harder, I think, when you're sitting there facing death, or it's just a mark. I don't really mean it.
Maybe it's not really a mark. Maybe it's something like a chip. You know how they have chips to track your pets? Maybe they'll, I don't know, upgrade the trade system so that you'll have a chip implanted in your hand.
But I don't think, I agree with Bob in that I don't think you can accidentally take the mark. I don't think like if they all of a sudden credit card companies say, well now you can just get your chip in your thumb and you can walk right. I don't think we're going to have accidentally taken it now with the mark of the beast. I think it is going to require a denouncement of your faith.
But to technology, I mean, technically the sin of the mark of the beast is to have the mark of the beast placed upon your hand and forehead and to fall down and worship the image of the beast. This is in the next chapter. It doesn't necessarily say that using the technology is what condemns you. I mean, the precursor's are already here because you have these. And I hold it in my hand with a number that I hold in my head, in my brain behind my forehead, and get money and do transactions and buy and sell. So the technology's already there, you're just going to make it into something, maybe it's more physical, or maybe it's symbolic, this is already it. But do we worship, or do we fall down and worship the mark of the image of the beast? Also, and also on what stands for what. People can, there are end times charts that were made now before the European Union existed, before Gorbachev was born, they had charts and they filled in other names. Other things and other people into it. And I think it's valuable to recognize. I think the thing is, rather than trying to predict what's going to happen, it's helpful to know what other. The Bible seems to talk about be able to recognize it. You're not necessarily going to be able to predict it in advance. Although it's useful to try to understand what it might be, because when it comes, you're not caught by surprise. But you can also get yourself really worried about, was it the European Union? Oh my gosh, should we blow up the one?
I don't think it'd be a problem for any one of us to not take the number. I don't think we'll be intimidated at all by that stupid looking sortie that he holds.
Well, I don't know if we'll know that we're doing it. I think that the technology is going to precede the actual act of worship. It's already in place.
Technology for the scanner is based on sixes, right? Isn't it something about sixes? Based on
I don't know. I think that 666.
Probably 0 1.
No, it's not 0 1.
If you put a 0 and a 1 together,
You add all the ones together.
But the big issue there is worshiping the beast, renouncing your faith and worshiping the image of the beast.
and that I think,
In addition to
And
taking the mark.
And let's talk about that too, because like the image of the beast, right? We think it will be so satanic, like clear and obvious, but it could be. I mean, right? So it could be totally subtle. I mean, yeah, like Hollywood and all the stuff that's out there right now. That
She is hot. She's
That's
hot
our-
right now.
But I also think one of the big points of Revelation, of apocalyptic, I saw the movie Apocalypse. It's very intense, very violent. It's very good. It's very violent. the whole idea of something coming to a violent and sudden end by something else. And that's kind of why he named it as the end of the Aztec race, and it's caused by us, because the white people come, and that's going to harbors the death of all the Aztecs. But anyway, that's the surprise. It's not surprising, it's history. But anyway, I think the big point of apocalyptic literature and the end times and Revelation and Daniel is people argue and even kill each other over how is the end going to come, and when is Jesus going to come, how is he going to come, what's going to happen before that. But what everyone agrees on, no matter what their stripe of Christian faith, if they're genuine Christians, is we differ over how he's going to come, but everyone agrees that he's going to come. There's going to be a judgment, God's going to draw back the curtain of time, it's game over, everyone out of the pool, it's gone, it's too late, it's over. And I think that apocalyptic literature tell you to be ready, prepare, look for the signs and take action now because the time is short. Be urgent. Take action now because it could be any moment, any second this could happen. And there'd be no more chances for people to hear.
And that action would generally be...
Well, it calls us to go out and proclaim Christ and to live, what does St. Peter, in light of the world's going to burn up and turn into ashes, what sort of people ought we to be? We should be, holy and living, looking for the coming of Christ and hastening his coming. Hastening his coming by what? One of the main things doing his coming is tell people about Christ so that Matthew 24:14 is fulfilled. And this will happen. We can't stop it. It doesn't mean we shouldn't fight against it. Fight for what's right and just. But it will come. It will happen. Don't think it's good if we stop. We're not going to be able to. But the idea is to recognize the signs of the times and act accordingly, be prepared, and have a sense of urgency now, and to still proclaim and preach and live on a cutting-edge way. And maybe it is going to be the United Nations, and maybe it is Gorbachev, in other words, it's not going to be. We'll be able to recognize that in due time.
Yeah.
What do we do in light of that?
There's really nothing too much about the Antichrist, the man, that I could say, but right now the United Nations only has 5 permanent members. I'm saying it's a big sign if it has 2 more, yeah. All right? And one of those 2 is Germany, that had a deadly wound that was healed, you might say, with a sword, okay? So, and there's an interesting Malachi. Anybody ever hear of the Malachi prophecy? Malachi prophecy. It's not a book of Malachi. It's this priest in the 700s, I think. He prophesied of.
That was the Italian prophet.
What?
Not Malachi.
He prophesied of the popes. Okay, he gave a long list of all the popes and descriptions of them, like little tiny descriptions of them, right? And he was basically correct. And he has one more pope left, just one. I thought that the next pope is going to be Peter the Roman, and the pope that's there now, he's pretty old. So that's why I think it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know. This wasn't really. I don't know how true a prophet of God this guy was, but I just think that's an interesting thing that there's only one more pope left, and the guy who's there now is. Glory of the Olive. Yeah, that's his title. Well, that's the prophecy, the Malachi's prophecy of him is he's going to be Glory of the Olive, and he comes from a branch that is Olivet branch or something like that, number 1. And number 2, I think the Glory of the Olive would be where he helps the Olive, United Nations, the Olive branch, peace people. He's probably going to help let them build up. He's probably going to endorse them. So that would fit that way.
Well, why don't we stop there for tonight?
Okay.
And divide up for a little